And good evening, I'm Jonathan Higgins.
I'm Rich Carlson.
And we're the Scanner Guys, and we're live this evening from coast to coast worldwide. And we've got a really good show ahead of us. Tonight, we're talking about mobile scanner shacks. So, the goal of tonight's show is to basically give you some ideas on how to set up your shack. If you've got questions, certainly put them in the comments. If we don't get to them during the broadcast, we're going to get to them at the tail end of the broadcast. Certainly, we love you being a part of the show each and every week, and thank you so much for joining us. This is the first show of 2021.
And we thought 2020 was bad.
So far, as we can see from everybody's comments,
Yeah.
It's been an interesting day today.
Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully it can't get any worse.
And then we noticed that some of you were pretty frustrated with trying to listen in to what's going on. Of course, the DC area is entirely encrypted. So there's very little, even on the fire end of things, it's encrypted as well.
Yeah,
for police and fire.
Yeah, I couldn't figure that out.
Yeah, I mean, everything's wide open in my county, but my highway department's encrypted.
Oh yeah, when they're cleaning out the ditches, they have to make sure they got security. So
the thing is I'm probably in one of the most corrupt towns in North Carolina.
Okay. It's better than where I'm at.
Go ahead.
Well, where I'm at, I moved in here on a Monday. Everything was fine. I'm listening to them. Wednesday or Thursday, they hit the switch and went encrypted. And I was like, ew.
Well, the same thing happened to me when I moved to this town.
Yeah.
I drove up here a couple of times to check out the house that we were purchasing. And I had the Landis Highway... Oops, I just said the name of the town. Landis Highway Department. And on the scanner, I was able to hear it.
Yeah.
Sure as crap. I was going to say the other word. I move in, get the shack set up in here, program in the town highway department, and the ENC comes up on the screen. I'm like, son of a gun. And of course, I left it in there, and of course it stays on there. Matter of fact, I wanted to make sure that if they ever came out of the clear, I dedicated a scanner just to listen to it so I could see if they ever come out of. And sure enough, they didn't. I mean, there's a regional dispatching for this town.
Yeah,
it's through the county. I figured, oh boy, I'll be able to hear local activity. So what? It's the highway department, but at least I'll be able to hear something that's going on in my town. Nope.
Yeah.
So
around here, there's only like two suburbs out here that are encrypted. The town I live in and the town that we've actually looked at some houses in. So we're not going to move there, but. For the most part, everything else is still pretty wide open out here for now, and hopefully it'll stay that way. Knock on wood. So, of course, the agency where I used to work at before I moved from Chicagoland out here, they went encrypted about a year or two, about 2 years after I moved out of there. So they would not be encrypted if I still worked there.
Yeah, you would have. There would have been a lot of fist pounding saying, "Nuh-uh."
Yep, absolutely. So.
But this is going to be a good show. So let's dive into it this evening. Let's take a look at our welcome slide. Mobile Scanner Shacks. And as always, the Scanner Guys are brought to you by Scanner Master. So anytime you make a purchase at Scanner Master, you're keeping this program going. Certainly make your purchases, whether it be accessories, scanners, and so on, at scannermaster.com. And we would just want to remind you, we send an email once a month now, and now that we're out of the holidays, and we want to make sure that you sign up for the Scanner Master newsletter. Sign up at scannermaster.com, and you can get some great information regarding new products, sales, and even some stuff that may be going on in your neck of the woods as well. So definitely sign up at scannermaster.com for the newsletter. Cool. And let's start off with our mobile shack with accessories. So we're going to start that off with a round table of accessories. Well, the table is missing, but we do have a bunch of items, and of course they're all available at Scanner Master. Now, Rich, when setting up your unit and radio, you have two options. Actually, three options. Yep. A lot of radios come with 2-wire harness, one that goes into the round plug, and then has the 2 cables, that connect to the fuse. Then you've got the one that's photographed here, which has the light control and the positive and negative and the hard line connection that's more secure.
Yeah, absolutely. And the plug on that one that goes into the back radio is much more sturdy than the little round one. And there's a lot of confusion on that, because that cable does come in the box for like a BCT 15, 15X, 996, and a 536 too, I think. Yeah, and I don't think it comes in the SDS 200. Hang on. Let me see. I don't remember if there's an SDS. If there's one of those power plugs on the back of my SDS 200.
Yeah, I think there is.
Yeah, there is. So, but that third wire, a lot of people think that's an ignition switch. Ignition sense cable. It is not. It's for the lighting on the radio. So if you hook it up to your interior lighting control, you can dim your interior lights. When the lights go full bright, so does the display on the radio. When the lights go down in the car, that follows along.
Well, the thing is I always use this cable, and I don't use the lighting control, so I don't connect that to anything. And in my current setup in my truck, I don't have this connected to the fuse box. So the next item, you see that cord, and then the next item is a cigarette lighter adapter. So you just connect up the positive and negative, and then use a cigarette lighter adapter. So if you don't want to do this extensive wiring, you can still use that wire kit plus the cigarette lighter kit, and then you're good to go. Now, Rich hit the nail on the head. It's because of the connection that I use it. Because that's a solid plug in there. I mean, it's really solid compared to the round plug. And a lot of times those round plugs, if you're going in and out of it or bumping it, those tend to go bad relatively quickly.
Yeah, and if you use that little coaxial connection on the back of your scanner, the way it works is a little metal pin in the center, and then on the outside there's a metal blade that has some spring tension on it. And it's just enough spring tension to stick out and to have a little bit of tension onto the round part that goes into the radio. The plug part goes in the radio. After a couple of years, that spring tension can go away, especially if it's in a car, because it's getting hot, it's getting cold, it's getting hot. That spring tension could go away, and that connection can come loose, and your radio will occasionally just power down for no reason, and you go over a little bump, it loses that connection. And it
comes back up.
Yeah, and if you've got a zip code scanner, you're just aching for an SD card error.
Yeah, especially with that's going to be abrupt shutdown, and that's going to create create a lot of issues. You don't want to have abrupt shutdowns with these particular radios.
Yeah, and if you've got an SDS or a 536, they take longer to restart once the power goes on. My car has got one of those automatic engine shutoffs. When you're sitting at a stop sign, the engine shuts off after a couple seconds. It drives me crazy. And there's a way to defeat it, but you got to hit that button every time you start the car. And there's no way to turn it off permanently. But every time I do that, my 536 reboots. And I got to sit there and wait for the 536 to come back up because of that. And I would have the same thing if I use that coaxial power connection. And you're the one that turned me on to using the 3-wire connection for that, because it's just that much more sturdy.
Yeah, I like it. I've had a 996 XT in my vehicle. I've had I had the SDS 200 in there, and right now I have the 536 in there, and I like I'm just so concerned about that connector. I mean, it's just and this eliminates some of the concern because it's a rugged connection.
Yeah.
So that's definitely something you want to keep in mind. And the other thing, too, is if you're not using this cable, and of course, probably Rich can vouch for this, all these additional accessories, let's say you're using the scanner in the house, get a small tote and just throw this crap in there, because you never know. You may end up setting up a mobile shack and you'll be saying, shoot, where is that cable?
Or missing a couple letters from that.
Yeah. So
Well,
definitely.
Case in point, when I moved from Illinois to Arizona, I had a ton of radio crud that I've accumulated over the years, and I brought it to one of our scanner club meetings and gave a lot of that stuff away. I ended up tossing probably about 25 of those things from that I collected over the years. And when I got out here and when I put that rack together, I was like, oh, crud, I wish I still had those. It'd be much better than these other ones. And and to this day, I rue the fact that I threw all that stuff away.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing with those accessories. You never know. You may swap a radio that you're using inside to the vehicle. But those are definitely some good components. Of course, a lot of you hear us talk about the next item, GPS. I mean, this is a huge thing. For the GPS. I mean, both Rich and I are Uniden. We're heavily Uniden. We do like the Whistler GRE Radio Shack brand as well, but we use a lot of Uniden stuff, and that is definitely handy, mobile. Especially with a lot of these database scanners. If you're running full database and you're traveling through territories you're not familiar with, let the scanner do the work.
Yeah.
There's
Absolutely.
no, I remember the old days of when I forgot what Radio Shack, mobile radio. I'm now in this area, but I hit bank 2, or I got to turn off bank 1 and I got to hit bank 3 or whatever it may be. I don't even touch the scanner other than the volume occasionally and the avoid button. And that's about it.
Well, a year ago, we drove up to Chicago and back a year and a half ago. Drove up to Chicago and back with my 536. I never touched the radio. It just kept on going. Occasionally, I'd hit the hold button on a channel I wanted to listen to and let the GPS do the work. It was great.
So that's certainly a huge asset with GPS scanning. Also, the next item, if you have room for it, a speaker. So this speaker I love, whether it be a Uniden or a Whistler scanner or a Radio Shack scanner, amplified speakers are the way to go. The reason behind it is if you like to listen to the AM, FM radio while you're driving and have your scanner on, you can kind of balance the levels a little bit better because you have your scanner with a little bit more oomph volume-wise. And the other thing, how many times do you open the window, Rich, traveling down the highway? You got all that wind noise, and if you don't have something that's giving a little bit more sound, you're going to be, what did they say? Especially on the analog stuff. A lot of times the digital stuff usually comes in blaring loud, but the analog stuff with the narrow banding tends to be a little bit lower. So an amplified speaker, and that amplified speaker is a Uniden Bearcat speaker, but it can be used across the board. The other thing too, if you're going to be using that speaker with this, this is a big one here, because the reason behind this is you get this little speaker, which does pretty well inside the house.
Yeah.
The problem is the headphone jack is the only option. Unlike with the 996, the 536, and some of the Whistlers that have the external speaker jack, you're competing with the resistor that's reducing down the volume a lot. So then you have to overcome it. So you can't use a non-amplified speaker. Guess what's going to happen, Rich?
Yeah, you're just not going to hear anything. Just consider the Home Patrol scanner as a portable scanner that is in kind of a different case. So you would have to use an amplified speaker on a portable scanner as well. And we tell people that all the time. They ask, I plugged my external speaker into my Home Patrol or my 436 or my 325. and I can barely hear it. And I got to hold it like this. It's louder on the little tiny speaker that comes in the radio because that headphone jack is very limited on the amount of power it can put out. And the reason they do that is they don't want you to blow your eardrums. And
Exactly.
yeah.
I mean, can you imagine if you had full volume and you had the thing cranked? I mean, it's like doing the scanner blaster on a portable radio and you have it all the way up to 15.
Yeah. Maybe. That's probably why I got tinnitus. You know, it's crazy. What's going on here? But it's a now we got an Amber Alert, so my phone's going to be vibrating all night long, every 5 minutes.
That's quite a vibration on that.
Oh yeah, phone. Could you hear it on your end?
Yes, I could hear it.
But the amplified speaker is very, very important on a home patrol or a handheld scanner. And it's less important on a mobile scanner if you're in a quiet environment. But like I said, you got the windows open, you've got a loud muffler, you're driving a truck that's loud. Unless you're driving a Cadillac, you probably need an amplified speaker.
Okay, the other thing that you're probably, if you're going to look at this speaker, is going to be another question is, okay, so I've got this speaker. It's got the wired leads yet again. Do I have to do this to the fuse box? If you don't want to do it to the fuse box, look at that. Again, the replacement cigarette lighter adapter. And then the other thing that you can do, which I've done, is in my truck I have both the speaker and the scanner connected up to that, and it's fine. Yeah. So you could do one cigarette lighter adapter and then wire it all together to the scanner and the speaker, and it works perfect.
Yeah, neither the scanner or the amplified speaker draw a lot of power, so it's no problem running both off a single cigarette lighter plug like that. It works great. I've used those barrier strips for years. You know, they got the little screw terminals on there, and I use a 4-wire one. I use the far one for positive, the far other one for negative. So there's separation between the two of them. And then I'll put like 3 or 4, connectors on the other side, the scanner, the other scanner, the GPS, and the amplified speaker. And it works great. They don't draw enough power to cause an issue. And you can run them off. You can run a scanner and a speaker, or maybe even 2 scanners and 2 speakers off a single cigarette lighter plug. It's not going to be a problem.
Yeah, and that's certainly a great thing. And then it's unit and brand, but you can use it across the board with whatever scanner you have. I mean, that's probably one of my favorite speakers. The other thing, if you want to know the model number, it's the BC23A. It has its own volume control as well, which is on the side, and you can actually shut the speaker off with that volume control. You turn it all the way down, it'll turn it off.
Yeah, and there are a couple comments on there. Remember, too, that you're fusing, you should put the fuse, at least the master fuse, at as close to the power source, the battery, as possible, or there's a fuse in the cigarette lighter plug. Which is good. You want to make sure that you have that fuse. You can have other fuses down the line as well, but you want to make sure you have your fuse as close to the power source as possible for the maximum protection. So that way, if there's a short real close after the cigarette lighter plug, it's protected, or if there's a short further on down the line. And if you've got multiple fuses in line, so you got a fuse on the cigarette lighter plug, one on your multiple cigarette lighter adapter like you've got pictured there, and then the ones on the fuse on the power line as well. Any one of those 3 fuses could pop if there's a short. So check each one of them to make sure that that it isn't popped if you're not getting power.
Yeah, and that brings us to the cigarette lighter power strip, as we could call it. It's got 4 ports, so we sell this at Scanner Master as well. This is great if you're trying to contain everything into some sort of... a lot of the vehicles have a lot of cigarette lighter adapters for cell phones and what have you. But, if you're trying to keep wires contained, keep it all contained into one area, get one of these. This will allow you to plug in, essentially, the scanner, if you have it wired separately for the speaker, and then of course the GPS, you really have to plug into a cigarette lighter adapter unless you create something a little bit different on your own versus what the manufacturer has a cigarette lighter plug on the kit. So that's definitely key there. But yeah, I mean, that's the great thing is keeping everything contained as well.
Yeah. And like when we talk about base station antennas, make sure you have lightning protection. When you talk about mobile power, make sure they're properly fused and grounded.
Mm-hmm. Now, we've talked about this before, and this is kind of like a quick nitty-gritty. You've got two scanners, one great antenna in the vehicle. You don't want to spend a fortune on putting in the Stridesburg multicoupler, $200.
Yeah, it costs more than the scanner.
Yeah. This is your quick way to be able to, let's say if you've got two scanners, one good antenna, you could do one of these, the SP1300 Combiner splitter. Get the short 1 foot jumper.
Yep.
If your scanners are right next to each other, very simple to set up. The input connection, which you see as input, it's the BNC female connector. That you would run the coax cable to there. Mm-hmm. Then output A would connect up to the back of one radio. And then output B, you would run your jumper and then run that to the second radio. Super simple. You do have, like we mentioned in the last broadcast, a little bit of signal loss, but this is probably the cleanest way and quickest way to be able to feed that second scanner.
And it also provides some isolation between the two scanners. The way scanners work, and it's beyond the time that we have available to talk about it, they can end up interfering with each other if you're using a simple T-splitter or something. And this does provide sufficient isolation between the two of them to keep that interference between two radios to a bare minimum. The Stridesburgs also have that isolation between the two of them, between the multiple scanners, as does this one. But this is a great low-cost option if you're in an area that is not a very weak signal area.
Yeah, so that's definitely a cool thing to keep in mind. I mean, we realize that not everybody can put in, a Stridesburg multicoupler in the vehicle. Yeah. You're on a budget. I mean, if you spent your money on a SDS 200, you're already a lot of money into this already.
Oh yeah. Well, something like that, it would be cheaper to put in two separate antennas.
Yeah.
But then now you've got two antennas on the roof of your vehicle instead of one. And it might be hard enough to get the spouse to approve one antenna, much less two or three.
Yes. But yeah, this is definitely a cool option to be able to run that second scanner in there. Now, this is another thing that we have. It's the Spectrum Force speaker silencer. I don't think we've talked about this before on the broadcast.
No, we haven't. And this is a really cool little device.
So what it basically does is, you see the little green wire that's on the screen? That acts as an antenna.
Right there where I'm pointing, guys.
Yes. And this will be able to silence the speaker of your scanner. Mm-hmm. So you're going to use an external speaker. You'll plug in an input and then an output, and then it silences the speaker. So when you're transmitting on your two-way radio, whether it be a ham radio, public safety radio, whatever particular radio, you're not having your voice and then whoever's talking on your radio at the same time.
Yeah. And like I say, and how many times if you're a ham or a GMRS guy or cop or firefighter, you're talking on your radio and then your scanner picks it up and it starts squealing, or there's other scanner traffic in the background and it's interfering. Being a cop, we always had two radios in the car plus one on our belt, and we're always, when we're talking on the radio, half the time we drop the microphone, turn the volume down on the radio, then you got to go and find the microphone again. This does it automatically, turns down the volume of the receiving radio.
Yeah, so this is something that we have at Scanner Master. It's not expensive. It's certainly something that you could pick up through Scanner Master and do this with your setup. So definitely check that out. We do have on the website, if you're interested in this, there's a PDF. You can look at how to wire it in and how it all works. But this is definitely a cool thing if you're like what Rich was saying, the people that you're talking to, whether it be ham radio or public safety wise, and they say, "Hey, I can't hear you. You got too much background noise."
Yeah. So basically, how this thing works, there's a question about that. Is the box has a speaker jack on it and a plug that goes into the external speaker jack of the scanner. So you plug your external speaker into this box, you plug the other end into the external speaker jack of the radio, and then there's the antenna. The antenna senses strong RF in the vehicle, and then it just cuts the connection between the speaker and the scanner. And so that way it just cuts off the speaker automatically. It's actually a really neat device. Kind of works like close call. It senses a strong signal.
Yeah.
And instead of tuning a radio, it just cuts the speaker with a diode switching network. And you can adjust the sensitivity on it. It's really a nifty little device. Yes, it interrupts the speaker audio. You got it.
Yeah, I mean, so definitely check that out on our website. If a few of you guys order this after this broadcast, I'm sure our shipping manager is going to say, "What the heck is going on? We haven't sold any of these in a while." That's why I put this in the slideshow.
Yeah, and he'll know. Oh, those guys were talking about it last night. Whenever Thursday morning comes on and something that's kind of unusual gets sold automatically, it's, oh, those guys were talking about it last night.
Joe's gonna get a couple of those. All right,
Joe.
Woo! So we made a sale, which is good.
Go.
All right.
We're on for another week.
Hey, Joe, make sure the comment section when you place the order, tell them you saw this on the Scanner Guys. Just like those stickers that you see on boxes, seen on TV.
That's seen on the Scanner Guys.
Yep.
And tell them we need a raise.
All right, we'll continue on with that. So that one's a good one. We'll definitely have to include that in another broadcast as well. Maybe go into a little bit more into detail with it. Maybe I can get our shipping manager to send me one and we can demonstrate it.
Woo! Yeah, there you go.
Because I don't have one of these.
Oh, yeah, and Dale says that's an option in some police package cars. Yeah, we had that in one of our generation of vehicles, a similar device. I don't know if it might have been the same one, but we had that where you could turn down, because we had that second radio, and it would actually mute that second radio. So.
Yeah, I mean, that's, something simple, really cool. So check it out on our website and go from there. So let's start our second segment of the show. We're going to talk about mobile shacks with handhelds. Basic, quick, and simple.
Yep.
So let's take a look at that. These are products that we don't sell at Scanner Master.
But we like them.
So one of you in our audience told us about this car floor seat bolt mount, which is really neat. And this works pretty well. So you can see that the one that's on the left of the screen is holding a 436. It'll also hold the SDS 100. So it just slides in through the little notch there, and it goes right into the seat bolt. So you just undo the seat bolt, slide this in, put the seat bolt in, and you're done. There's no drilling holes. There's it's just you sell the car or it's a lease. Just pop this out. And you're done. Yeah.
And sometimes the seat bolts will have enough of a thread sticking up on the floor that you won't even have to unbolt it. Just get another nut to fit on top of it, slide this on, and then put that nut on it. I had one car that the seat bolts, there was actually, a quarter, half inch of thread that was above the seat bolt. And I used that, a very similar type of setup on that. I didn't have to take the bolt out.
Rich, what do you think of the one on the right?
I like that. That's even easier to install.
Yes, I mean literally it just goes in between that center console
Yep.
and the seat, and those little flappy things will make it so it's a nice tight fit.
Yep.
The connection there looks familiar. If you guys are familiar with the RAM mount
Yeah.
of the unit in Home Patrol, you
Yep.
can use if you've got the RAM mount for the windshield, you can use the part of that mount for this connection.
Yeah, they're very similar in setup. And the nice thing about this is that it's and there's a term for it, and I just can't think of it off the top of my head. I'm getting too old for this stuff. But it basically allows you to universally turn this thing in almost any orientation. So it's a great thing. And plus, it's got a little storage stuff where you can put like a pen or your toll transponder or something like that in that little slot.
Yeah, I mean this is really nice. So definitely check out this company here, right in the middle. We got their logo right there, and look
Yep.
what it says: no hole mounting solutions, and that's what they specialize in. And
Yeah.
these were some of the scanner related ones that we saw. If you guys go to their website and there's a customer comment, tell them that the scanner guys sent you.
Yeah. They are not a sponsor of the show, but we just like their stuff. So we are equal opportunity talkers.
Yes. And maybe they'll send us some stuff to demo. I mean, they could benefit
you never
us
know.
in the
Yeah.
grand scheme of things. But definitely check those out.
Yep.
The next item is sold at Scanner Master, and I've used this. As a matter of fact, this is in my wife's. This is a car that she's had. God, this was several years ago. This is probably like 3 cars back. Was her Volkswagen Jetta that I took the photos of this. I was driving her car into work because we carpooled in when we lived in Massachusetts occasionally.
Yeah.
So I ended up having to take some product photos, and I had her car. So I, went outside and suction mounted the RAM mount. And this RAM mount, have you used this, Rich?
I have. I had one, and unfortunately, I left it in the vehicle when I traded it in. I forgot I had taken it off and put it in the. I stashed it in a little cargo thing where I forgot about it. I didn't know. I had this car for 3 years. I didn't know that there was a little drawer underneath the center console that you could put stuff in for about a year, and then I discovered the darn thing, and. A couple of months before I traded the car in, I had changed things around. I stuck the thing in that little drawer thing, and I forgot about it. And I was like, oh, man, I missed that. I do have that little clip, though, because you can buy those separately for the Home Patrol.
Yeah, these RAM mounts, I do have. I do have 1 or 2 of these, and I love it. It works great. I mean, for one of my vehicles, for a little while, I just had the Home Patrol, and I suction mounted it. Works nice. I mean, it's a heavy duty mount. You feel the Home Patrol when it has batteries in it, and it's got a little bit of weight to it. But taking the batteries out does eliminate some weight. But it's still a heavy radio.
Yeah.
And the RAM mount is really great. It basically suctions on, and it's a tight suction, and it works great. And the Home Patrol is definitely a good radio to use mobily as well.
Yeah, the only reason I don't use that now is I live in Phoenix, and the average temperature in the summertime is 115 outside. You can imagine how hot it would get on the inside. So my guess is that the radio would probably melt if I left it in a parking lot for an hour or two. But I didn't live in Phoenix. I'd probably still have that in my vehicle.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, with the hotter temperatures, you do have to, if you're not in Phoenix, but you're in the Northeast or down in the Carolinas, occasionally you want to moisten the connection so it stays on there. But yeah, cup, if you're in Phoenix, you're going to be dealing with it because it's so dry.
I had a dash cam in my last car, and the thing was literally misshapen from the heat. The plastic on it got melted. And another thing you might want to consider doing, if you have something on here, don't leave it there when you're in a parking lot. It's going to be gone by the time you get back.
Yeah, I mean, especially if you're in a high crime area,
Yeah.
definitely, you may want to take it down or at least cover it or something.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, a lot of people think. I mean, quick look, they're gonna think, oh, that person's got an old GPS. Look how thick
Yeah.
it is.
Yep.
Hey,
Yeah, it does. A lot of people think that looks like a GPS receiver. Yeah.
because it's so big,
Yeah.
But yeah, but definitely this is another thing that's available at Scanner Master. The other cool thing that I used this a lot when I was in the camper, I was able to, in the camper, we have our own bedroom area, and there's like a counter space that's on each side of the bed. And I was able to suction cup it to that, and it works great. It gets the scanner high enough up, and you're able to see it. I mean, so you can use this in an RV as well. So if you have a base where you're able to suction cup it in, or let's say you have in your house and you have a seat by the window, you can suction cup it to your window and then have a telescoping antenna or use that little antenna that comes with it, and you've done two things. You've mounted your scanner in your house, and you also have it near a window.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's called thinking outside the box. It's intended for this, but you can also use it for that.
So let's continue on here. So I want to remind you, the Scanner School drops a podcast each and every week. Wherever you like to listen to podcasts, you can find the Scanner School, so search them out. The last episode that dropped yesterday was Ask the Scanner School. So kind of like he has his own Ask the Scanner guys, he's got his own Ask the Scanner School. So definitely listen to his podcast. In this episode, Phil goes through his email and answers those questions on the podcast. So definitely listen into that. You may learn a couple of different things. The Scanner School is definitely a friend of the Scanner guys. So make sure you give him some love on there as well. And our tip of the week brought to you by East Coast Pagers, your emergency alert specialists. We've talked about these before. Rich, tell us about this week's tip.
I love these things. A buddy of mine on the fire department turned me on to these things a few years back, and they are the handiest thing. You get these at Home Depot or Lowe's or places like that. It's a 50-pack of these things that comes, they're in a big circle. You just peel them off, and it's a Velcro strap. It's got the loop on one side, the hook on the other side, and it's got a little slot on the one end so that you wrap the loop around the cable so that when you I wish I
got one.
Thought ahead. You got one laying around someplace?
Yeah.
Okay. And that way the strap is retained by that wire when you're not using it, and then when you are using it, you just wrap it up and it's double Velcro.
All right, so let me go to the dual screen here. And yet again, this is an item that we don't sell at Scanner Master. So here it is. It's on this cable. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to separate it a little bit so we can see. Whoops! I made the cable fall down. Hold on one second.
Cable fall down. Go boom.
Okay, so typically it comes like this, and as you can see here, there's an opening, and then the Velcro. Mm-hmm. So there's the soft part, and then there's a little rough part there.
Yeah, the hook and the loop. Yeah.
So what you would do is you would take this, put it here, loop it in, push it through, and then do this, and there we go. And then what you can do is when you're putting away your cables, wind it up.
Mm-hmm.
And, oops, if I can do the camera right here.
Yeah.
So let's see. So we've got the cable here. So what I do is I squeeze this together and then loop it around. And then it keeps everything contained.
Yeah. It's, like Steve says, it's a Velcro zip tie. And it's reusable, which zip ties aren't. And it's a great, neat solution I used to use black tape. Take these wires, wrap them up, and then
Oh,
tape
but it
on
gets
it.
so dirty, right?
Oh yeah, it's and then the tape degrades, and you get that sticky nonsense all over your hands, and the cable. It's just a mess. These things are an easy, no mess, way to do it. It really is a solution. And why didn't I think of that? I'd be a billionaire if I had thought of that. So
And a package of these goes for about $5, 5,
yeah,
$6, and you get 50
yeah.
of them.
Oh yeah,
And just have this, somewhere, like near your shack, and then you get a new cable. You
yep,
can wind it up. The other cool thing too is for computer cables that are in the back of your desk.
yeah,
If you've got a lot of excess, you
yep.
can wind up some of the excess, so there's not so much of it, and you kind of keep those cables contained.
Yeah,
So
exactly. So they're not hanging on your, down in the bottom of your desk and everything like that. Yeah, they're just a great way to do cable management. And if you've got lots of radios or lots of computers or both, you got wires hanging all over the place, and it's a great way to clean that stuff up.
So once again, our scanner tip is brought to you by East Coast Pagers, your emergency alert specialists. So make sure you contact them if you're interested in any of the Unication products, the G4, G5, the wide range. Let me post up their information right now on the screen. There it is right there, East Coast Pagers. East Coast Pagers is the official authorized Unication dealer, proud to support public safety professionals, businesses, and individuals. Give them a call at 877-231-PAGE and check them out online at eastcoastpagers.com.
Cool.
And that brings us to the midway point of our show. So make sure you get in all your questions right now. So at the tail end, we can start answering those. So let's continue on. Now we've talked about portable scanners. Now we're going to talk about the base mobiles. Basic and simple setups.
Yep.
How many of you remember this?
Yeah. Hey, how many do you have a half a dozen of those sitting in a junk box in the garage? Yeah.
And this used to be all you would basically need to get a scanner mounted in your vehicle.
Yeah.
And boy, has things changed with cars.
Oh yeah, I mean, first off, dashboards of cars used to be made out of metal, and then on the bottom you would have a couple screws that hold that bottom of the thing. I know you just find two convenient ones, take them out, put the bracket on there, tighten up the screws back on it, and hang the scanner off it. But back in my day, we used to do the same thing with 8-track players. So.
Yeah, I mean, my first vehicle was an 88 Chevy Blazer. And it was an old Blazer. And I found exactly what Rich said. 2 screws that lined up, got the scanner mounted, was good to go. Ran the antenna cable, done.
Yeah, 69 Chevy Chevelle. And it was all metal and did exactly that.
Yeah, and this certainly works great. But unfortunately, a lot of the newer cars don't have that anymore.
No.
This was a recent project that I worked on. And this is probably my favorite mobile shack setup.
Yeah.
And this is basically... I got some wood. I did some measurements. I just chopped it up real nice and I planned it out. Everything is self-contained. I do have the powered speaker. I bought the plate for the unit and radio. Mm-hmm. I've got the old school GPS unit, and all the wires are contained inside the box. So it's a clean and easy setup. I actually moved the GPS antenna because it's got a magnet on it. It's actually sitting on top of the speaker. So
there you go.
So I moved that in the current setup. And the other thing that I have, this box is in the middle of my pickup truck. I have you can sit 3 people in the front, but I never have any. It's usually just 2 people in the front, so it's right in the middle. Yeah. And I do have, which my wife was able to find, a gray towel that matches the box. So when I'm parked somewhere and I don't want prying eyes to say, what is that, and want to break in, I just cover this up.
Absolutely. It makes it real easy to do it.
Out of sight, out of mind. And this is my setup. And how I have this is it uses the nuts on the side for this mounting bracket. Mm-hmm. And you can see, I'm pointing at the screen, but if you look at the third image over from the left, you could see like an opening there. That allows me to loosen that if I need to take the radio out. So that's why there's those holes on the side. And then the amplified speaker, Paul, the one that I would recommend to you for the for your SDS 200 is the Uniden Bearcat BC 23A is the speaker that I have there, and I would recommend that totally for your SDS. And let's continue on here. So look at this. Another product that we don't sell at Scanner Master, but we would recommend it. This is a solid signal. So this is the bracket mount that I purchased for $24.19. And this will fit pretty much any of the Uniden radios and some of the Whistler Radio Shacks. As long as they're the same size as a 996 or a 536 or any of those radios. And the great thing about this, Rich, you don't have to take the metal sleeve off the radio.
Right. Yeah. So if you got a PSR 600, a Pro 652, Pro 197, WS 1065, BCT 15, 15X, 996, any of those, 996 is the 536. This particular one does not fit the SDS 200, but I'm pretty sure they probably have one that does.
Oh, you just gave away the next slide.
Oh, did I? Oh, sorry about that. I should actually look at these darn slideshows before the show.
So this is for this particular radio. Now, the other thing, when I built my box, if I go back, I'm going to go back on the slide. I bought black finished screws, so it looks really good. So it matches that. So definitely keep that in mind when you're at.
And I like that gray color too.
Yeah, the gray color looks good. I mean, it's basically black and gray. It gives it a two-tone color. So the cat's out of the bag right now. Look at this. Solid Signals is got for you guys that are wanting to run your SDS 200 in the vehicle. Same exact thing. The whole opening is bigger, of course, because the radio is bigger. But yeah, look at that. Looks so sharp. And this one's a little bit more, about $33.39 at the time of this broadcast. And the product code is right on the screen, so you can look this up on their website. And this is certainly a must-have if you're trying to look for a professional feel for mounting your scanner in the vehicle.
Yeah, or in a cabinet.
In the cabinet as well. So this is Rich's setup. We've shown this before. And this is a very simple, cool setup. Rich, tell us a little bit about this.
All right, so we call this the Erector Set. Basically what I did is I took a piece of heavy lumber, it's finished particle board, and I cut it to fit the well. There's a well in between the seats on my Honda Odyssey. And the wife and I were at the auto show, and we were looking at the cars. I wasn't really in the market for a new car, but we like going to the auto show anyway. And she was looking at this one. She said, "You got to come and look at this. You got to come and look at this." And I said, no, come and look at it now. And then she showed me this car, and I'm like, ooh, I like that. And we stopped at the Honda dealer on the way home, and we ended up with our with this Honda Odyssey. It's actually got plenty of room between the seats where you can actually mount radios, which is very difficult these days.
Yes.
So I got this piece of finished hardboard and cut it to fit the well, and I put some rubber feet on the bottom of it, and I built this bracket setup for it, and I used nut certs. They're basically threaded inserts that you drill like a 1/4 inch hole into the wood. You put this thing into it, or a 3/8 inch hole, whatever the size is. You put this thing into it, and then when you draw the nut, the bolt into this nutser, it tightens it down into the wood. So it makes a nice, strong, reinsertable threaded insert. And so I got the 2 brackets coming up to fit the 2 radios, the 2 scanners, and you see the little brackets on the first picture in kind of in the middle. That is where the little box I use for combining the GPS receiver and the power all go into that little box that mounts onto there. And plus I have external speakers mounted on that as well. And then I've got my GMRS radio, which is that Elector dual bander radio. That's just actually Velcroed to the 536. And then that whole thing just kind of fits right in between the cup holder and the front dashboard. And the compression keeps those radios together, and it just sits right in there. It's heavy enough where that thing does not move. And I mean, I can try to wiggle it and it won't move. So it actually works out very well. I actually have a power lead going that powers all 3 radios and the GPS. There is a cigarette lighter socket plug in there as well for the GPS. And that goes to a ignition relay up underneath the hood. And then I got the power lead coming up in there. Now, this was a very early picture, and you see that red wire sticking out and the black wire going out because I hadn't had my power lead run or my antenna leads drilled yet. So I had those wires coming out. So now you don't see either of those 2 wires that I'm pointing at on my screen. And it works really well. I got 3 NMO mounts up on the roof. My buddy Will cued me into a specific type of antenna up on the roof that works great. I've been using a Comtelco for the 2 scanners for a long time. They work great. The GPS, I've got the old style GPS like you do, and that is plugged into that little adapter box, which breaks it out so I can use it for both scanners. And then the GPS is just hanging in the back seat. There's a handle that you can grab onto to get in and out of the back seat by the back door. And I just have that hanging on that little handle. So it sees the sky just fine. And I use the GPS for the 536. I have it connected to the 996, but I really don't use GPS on that very often. But when I do, it's available to it. Yeah. It took me an evening to put it together, and it works great. And I have not, since I put the wiring in, I have not done anything to this.
Yeah, it's the same thing. I mean, with my setup, I mean, yet these are simple.
Yeah.
Simple setups. You don't need to go crazy. You need to, as both Rich and I, we thought outside the box. We said, okay, here's an opening. What can we fit there? How can we wire it in? The other thing, too, going back to, I also have those felt pads on the front and back of my box.
Yeah.
So when everything comes out, it's self-contained, and you'll never know that was sitting there in the vehicle when I go to trade it in. Same thing with this.
Yeah, exactly. And what I did is I put some of that cloth side of the Velcro on the back side of the Elenco. Again, I'm pointing at my screen here so you can see it.
Yeah, so it's right. Let me just widen
between the cup holder and the Elenco radio.
Whoops, let me just right over here. You can see my mouse moving. It's right here. You can see
and that keeps the radio from scratching the plastic, so that when I do take that out, you won't see any scratches. It's kind of like a cloth on there, and it really, really, it works great. And I've had this car now for 2 years, and I've not changed anything. And if you know me, I love to change stuff. So, what I did is after I got all this fitted and worked and I was happy with it, I took it out, took the radios out, and then I painted the whole thing.
Yeah, and you
my
can
wife
see,
painted it.
Well, you can see how good it looks. I mean, it's black, so it's not going to stand out. It looks like, I mean, looking at this head on, it looks like it belongs there, essentially.
Yeah. I was thinking about putting boards and having a buddy of mine that does woodworking cut the boards to fit the curves alongside and then painted to match the dashboard. But I didn't need it.
No, I mean everything
Yeah.
looks like. I mean it's not like the silver showing it. It's a dark color, so it all blends in with the radios and everything. It just looks
Yeah.
good. And that was the whole thing of when I was building mine is I wanted something to a good question. When driving, do you get any vibration?
Absolutely not. That thing is rock solid. It does not move. It doesn't vibrate. It doesn't wiggle. The only way to get that out is I have to actually put a plastic wedge between the bottom of the 536 and the top of the Linko radio to separate the Velcro that holds the two of them together. And I got a big, wide plastic taping knife that I stick in between them to separate the Velcro. And then that way I can then pull that radio out and then the other two will come out.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's a good
No
follow-up.
potholes here. Yeah.
Yeah, and the same thing with mine in between the fabric, and also I trimmed down some of the cabling, and also use some of this as well. So there's
Yep.
no rattling. The last setup I had, everything wasn't fully tight inside the box in my old setup, and I would get some rattling noise and it would drive me nuts. I haven't heard, knock on wood, I haven't had any rattling or any noise whatsoever. So, and these are things, you can come up with. I mean, as you can see here, this is a 2 scanner and a 2-way radio setup. You can do something as simple as a 1 radio setup. You can do, like we showed earlier with a cup holder option that's been available, or that seat bolt. Something simple.
Yeah, and I could have put just one radio in there if I wanted to use the bracket that came with the radio and screwed it into where the cup holder is if I wanted to. But the wife didn't want any holes drilled on the inside of the car. She has no problem putting antennas on the roof, but she doesn't like to see holes drilled on the inside of the vehicle. So, this is wife approved. It was actually wife suggested. And, if you get the wife to approve something like that, you're doing it right.
Yeah, that's for sure. So that's certainly a cool mobile setup there. So let's continue on here. Now we're going to go over some shack tips. And this is something we're going to start including in some of these shows when we cover a topic. We're going to give you pepper in some tips, so you to keep in mind with the various things. Mobile shack tips. Do not mount anything in or near airbag deployment areas. That is a key thing. You don't want to get a 996 sandwiched into your forehead or anything like that. So Rich, take the next one.
So whether or not you want to use a handheld or a mobile scanner, use the best size scanner for the job. And that's going to depend on the vehicle that you're using, the availability of space and mounting position, and go back to the rule above that where the airbag deployment, if you don't have room to mount a mobile scanner in your vehicle, and there's just no place to put it without intruding on the airbag area or your knee space or something like that, you may end up having to use a handheld scanner, and then you can go back and look at those mobile mounts that we've talked about for the handhelds.
So the next bullet point is updating the programming often and before road trips, especially in a mobile vehicle setting. You're going to be traveling through areas which you're not normally frequenting, and if you're using the scanner with the GPS, you want to make sure that the updated programming is available if you're using full database. The other thing is if you're using a database scanner and you're using a favorites list with GPS scanning, you want to do a once over. Take a look on radio reference. take a look at your favorites list and make sure everything kind of coincides with one another. The other thing, too, is you want to look at the latest updates with some of these trunking systems or conventional county pages. If there's been some updates relatively recent, take a look at the update history on radio referencing and say, okay, they got a new frequency, or they got a couple of different towers. So that is definitely key.
Yeah, and I remember too with the unit and zip code scanners, the Home Patrol SDSs and the X36s, is when you update the full database, it does not update any favorites lists that you may have exported from the full database. So you may have the up-to-date full database, but if you're using favorites lists, make sure those are up to date as well. And those you're either going to have to redo them or update them manually if you know there's been changes.
All right, Rich. Once you're done taking a drink there, take the last one away. We talk about this one so much.
Oh, absolutely. Especially in a mobile environment, make sure you have a spare SD card. Each of my handheld scanners, like my SDS and my 436, I have a spare SD card taped inside the battery compartment. On my 536 in the car, I've got a spare SD card in the glove box. You got to have a spare SD card. Even if you have it set up so that the radio does not go on and off with the ignition and you have the replay turned off, you need that spare SD card. If no other reason to prevent that original card from getting corrupted. But if it does get corrupted, chances are it's going to be corrupted in the most inopportune place where you can't get at your computer, you can't get on the internet, you can't rebuild the card, you don't have an SD card reader. For whatever reason, you didn't bring the USB cable, you're going to have some reason why you can't fix that right away. If you have a spare, turn the radio off, take the old card out, put the new card in, turn the radio on, boom, you're done. And make sure that spare is up to date as well.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, make a habit of updating the card frequently when you update the radio. So just do that hand in hand. So we'll look at that again. So there's our mobile scanner tips. And there's 4 of them there. I'm sure we could come up with more, but those are some of the basic ones we had in mind. Safety, what type of scanner, and programming, and backup to programming. So covering all of the bases there, the basic things for mobile scanners. Yes, Joe, that is a good point too. Those SD card readers and adapters, especially the adapter. If you've got a laptop that's got the full size, having that adapter with you is definitely a blessing.
Yeah, and keep that little SD card in that adapter, and you're less likely to lose it. So I have a little plastic box I bought at the Container Store that's, about the size of a matchbook, and it's just big enough to hold an SD card. So I have a little piece of foam in there to keep it from rattling, and I put the SD card in the full-size SD card adapter in that little plastic box, and I toss it in the glove box, and that's where it lives. Heat doesn't bother it. Never had a problem with that, and it works great. I've never had to use it because I've got it. But I tell you what, the first time I take a trip without it, that card's gonna get corrupted, and I'm gonna need it. So,
oops, that was the next one I wanted. And Joe, this was another good point. So for my setup, since I only have one scanner, and a lot of times I will travel with a portable radio, especially if I know that I'm going to go rail fanning. So what I'll do is I'll bring my 125 AT, and that's a good point, Joe. So for example, let's say if I'm chasing a train and I want to monitor a couple different frequencies, I can lock my 536 on one, and then I could plug in, because I carried that extra power cable for my 125 AT, I can plug that in, and I can run with my typically one scanner setup. Temporarily, I can run 2 radios. Yeah. So that's a good point. And I usually carry one of those the newer USB cables with me. Very good, Joe. I mean, that's a really good point too. I mean,
And even for your mobile scanners, take the cigarette lighter plug that comes with the scanner and leave that, in the trunk or in your storage compartment, and just leave it there in case you do have a wiring issue. You can temporarily run the power off the cigarette lighter plug.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, I've had scanners.
Yeah, I did. I just addressed that comment. So
Yeah,
just
yeah. So I've had scanners in cold environments and warm environments, and the I haven't had an issue with the scanner in the vehicle. Have you? With Kevin's comment.
Yeah, no, about the heat. Yeah, I had an issue once back in Chicago. I had a 2006 or 2005, I forget which, and I left it in the car overnight, and it got down to about 25 degrees below zero. My car, of course, my car is outside. My wife's got to park inside the garage, so I had to park outside, and I left it in there. And when I got in there, the LCD was frozen, and when I turned the car on, you could hear the scanner come up, but you couldn't see the display because it was frozen, and it took a while for it to warm up. And that wasn't a big deal, but a few years before that, when I had a Pro 2004 in the car, so that's kind of dating things, I left it out and I forgot to cover it, and it was right there in the sunshine through the sunroof of the vehicle, and it boiled the LCD display and it went all black. So I asked around, and somebody told me stick it in the freezer overnight, and that'll fix it. And sure enough, it did. Now I don't know if that's the right thing to do, but I had that 2004 for several more years after that, and I never had a problem with it after that. But like I say, that display was basically boiled and all black. Put it in the freezer overnight, and it's worked fine ever since.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely the thing. That's brings up the other point too. Is another reason why I use the towel, and it's actually coming up in a couple of slides. The other reason for the towel, one, theft, and another thing that Joe mentions, if the scanner is going to be in direct sunlight, use the towel. It'll prevent theft and also protect the scanner from the sun. It'll be a layer of protection, so it's not baking in the sun. I mean, look at most of our scanners are black, and the black color tracks what? Light.
Yeah, it absorbs light. Well, out here in Phoenix, every car, when you buy a new car, they always throw one of those sunscreens that you put in the windshield. I've got about 5 of them in the garage because I've bought 3 cars since I've been here, and they all come with it. And then I bought one the day, when we first moved out here. 3 days later, I bought a new car. Well, they come with the cars out here. And I've always done that. I've always had a towel that matched the interior color of the car. So I've got a black towel because I've got black not seat covers, but carpeting in my car. And so that black towel works out perfectly. And when I had my gray car, before, I was walking through Walmart one day, and I happened to see some bath towels that were the exact color of the interior of my car. So I found the right size towel, and I left that in the car, and I think I still have that thing. I think I use it for my car washing now, but get a towel that kind of matches the interior of the vehicle, and just put it over the radios, and nobody will know they're there.
And that's the thing with my box. So I have it gray matching. My wife was able to find. She was out. I think she was at the Dollar Tree or something, and she knew I was looking for a towel to match. And usually what happens is I half fold it down when I'm listening to the scanner, so the speaker is still covered. So all I got to do is just open it up again and cover it up. So I mean, it's something that's really easy, and it matches and it looks nice. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, it keeps it, for the things that Joe mentioned. 2 major things. Sunlight on the hot days, and good anti-theft device. A simple Dollar Tree, or if you spend a couple of dollars at Walmart or whatever it may be, is well worth it.
Yeah, and like Joe said, you could put a jacket over it or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
In Phoenix, we don't normally have jackets in the car. I mean, I'm wearing a short sleeve T-shirt when I went out today, and 65 degrees, so we're not wearing jackets. Although you can tell people who've lived there all their lives, when it's 65 degrees, they're all bundled up in hat and gloves out here. And I'm from Chicago, 65 degrees, I'm in the swimming pool.
Yeah. So we've got more tips for you. So this goes into the antenna section here. So Rich, I'm going to have you take the first one.
Sure. So always, 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 antennas work better up and out. So when you're in a vehicle, an antenna outside the vehicle works a whole lot better than one inside the vehicle. And if you talk to certain people, like my buddy Will, he says always drill NMO and put NMO mounts on your car. But you don't have to do that. You can use a mag mount antenna or a mirror mount or a trunklet mount, but get the antenna outside the vehicle. It will work a whole lot better than an antenna inside the car. Basically, you're driving around inside a Faraday cage. So, and you notice the same thing with your cell phone. If you're like this with your cell phone, it's not going to work very well, but you stand outside the car, it's going to work a lot better.
Very much so. So anytime, that's for sure. And the other thing, we've talked about this, the second bullet point, we talked about this a little bit last week when we were talking about ground planes and so on. Anytime that you're able to put an antenna, whether it be NMO or mag mount, you want to put it in the middle of the roof for best results. If you have multiple antennas, you want to have some separation in between the two.
Yeah.
You want to make sure that they're not right on top of each other. And, I believe we showed Dale's antenna farm and a few other people's, I believe Will's antenna farm.
The antenna farm, that's like an antenna Iowa.
Yeah, and you can see that both of them they've taken some time to plan out their antenna configuration, so it's all spaced out. It's going to work the best for them. Rich, that we kind of hit on the third item. I'm going to let you take that away. And this is the controversial item.
Yeah. And I go both ways on this one. Mag mount versus a permanent mount. Use the one that's going to work for you. Okay. The more important part is to get the antenna up and out. And for a scanner, a mag mount antenna is going to work fine. A drilled mount will work better, and it's going to look better too because you're not going to have a wire sticking out and stuff like that. But you know what? If a mag mount is the only way you're going to be able to get an antenna outside the vehicle, go for it, my friend. Go for it. They work really well. We got those little Spectrum Force mini mag mounts. They're like $19.95, and they come in either BNC or SMA. Awesome little antennas. And I keep a couple of them because I use them on my car when I buy a new car so I can get my scanner going because it might take me a couple of weeks to get my antenna holes drilled. If you're drilling your antenna hole, you have to remember a couple things. First off, make sure you have a NMO drilling bit that has a very shallow 3/4 inch hole saw, and it only goes down just enough to get through the sheet metal. You don't want to drill all the way through the headliner. So there are special drill bits that will drill a nice, neat, and clean hole into the sheet metal and not drill down into the headliner and poke a hole. Been there, done that. And it works really well. And then it also deburrs the hole. If you're using a mag mount, place the mag mount in the center of the roof if possible, but at least get it out the roof.
Yeah, it's definitely a key thing here. But that's definitely a key thing to keep in mind is to definitely do that. I'm actually updating the slideshow right now.
Right in the slideshow, just as we're doing the show.
Just doing the show. Dale actually sent me photos of his inside mobile shack, which I'm going to show you guys momentarily, but unfortunately I can't show the slideshow while I'm editing it. So let me just see
Yeah.
where did
Well, like I say, in my particular vehicle, I can't put an antenna smack dab in the middle of the roof because I've got a electric sunroof, and that goes back. So I'm kind of stuck putting my antennas towards the rear of the vehicle. So I've got 3 antennas, one for each radio, and I've got one on each side in the far back, and then one up as far forward in the center as possible. And that's the one that's connected to 536. Because that's my most important radio.
All right, so I've done that. Let me. This is real time. This show is certainly real time. We'll save that for the last slide of the presentation.
There you go.
So we got a couple more bullet points. Let me grab the first one, and then Rich and I will go back and forth on these ones. So traveling with a scanner. These are tips. So this is a question that we get a lot, is what scanner, where can I use the scanner? What state laws? We recommend looking at your local state laws. There's a few websites out there to indicate, how you can use scanners in those states. Some of them, if you're a ham radio operator, you can use a scanner. Some, it varies. So the thing is look at your local states. We're not going to get into the nuts and bolts of it, but there is some states that it's that there's laws against having them in the vehicle. Of course, if you get pulled over, no matter what state you're in, turn the scanner off, turn the volume down, don't draw attention to it. You don't want the officer, as Rich has said many times, when he's calling over the radio, he doesn't want to hear his voice echoing or squealing. Because you have your scanner volume up. Rich, take the next one.
All right, so we talked about this one a little bit earlier before as well. Make sure you update and check your scanner programming before you leave. You have a zip code type scanner, even if you're just bringing a 436, make sure the database is up to date. And if you're using a favorites list, or if you've got a non-database type scanner, make sure that the programming is up to date and correct. And if you know what states you're going to be going to, make sure that you have those states programmed into your scanner if you're not using a zip code scanner.
And Joe, you covered this in detail. 2 points on the next point. Cover up your equipment in unfamiliar areas when you're parked. You may just want to get in the habit every time that you're parked, just cover it up for the 2 reasons, for sunlight and so on, and theft. Protect, if they don't see it, they're not going to be interested.
Yeah, and let them go and burglarize the next car over. And, so if they don't see it, they're not going to grab it.
Okay, with the unit and scanners, which Rich and I are both big fans of. Rich, final bullet point. GPS. If you've got a GPS-enabled scanner, get the GPS receiver, especially if you got a 536 or an SDS or a Home Patrol, and let the scanner do the work, and let the GPS turn the stuff on and off as you're driving around. Just make sure you check your service types, turn on the service types of the stuff you want. A lot of times when I'm driving with a 536, I'll turn off the police and the fire traffic because I'm not that concerned about that. But I'll listen to the railroads and the airports and stuff like that. And there's nothing neater than having the radio come up with the correct channels, or, oh, wow, I'm picking up Wichita Tower, and there I am coming through Wichita. It's great. I don't have to go out and figure out what that frequency is. The scanner already knows. So that is a great, great, great feature. Yeah, and that is totally, we'll preach to the choir how great that is. And even if you have a 996 or a 15X, just need to do a little bit more work programming, and you can use the GPS as well there.
Yeah, absolutely. On my 996, I do have it set up for my home state. We have 15 counties in Arizona, and I have each of the county sheriff and a couple of the local fire and police channels for each of those counties, except for the two big ones where Phoenix and Tucson are, because those are just too much. And so, as I'm driving through Coconino or Yavapai County, it'll turn on the local sheriff's channels and the local fire channels for those counties when I'm up there. And it works really well. The only problem I had with that is with the 996 is that some of the counties out here in Arizona are about the size of Michigan. They're huge. I think Coconino is something, like 180 miles from end to end and probably just as wide. And so the range limitations on the Uniden scanners were such that I actually had to make 2 or 3 programs for the sections of the county, which allowed me to do a little more flexibility on that, but I had to make a couple extra things. So as I'm driving through the county, it'll be Coconino South, Coconino Central, Coconino North. But it works great. It turns that stuff on and off.
Perfect. Yeah, so that's really cool. So that ends our tip discussion. And Dale was texting me during the show, and he sent me, this is the setup inside of his work truck. And what he has here, of course, is the couple of two-way radios, and sandwiched right in between in the middle is a BCD 996 P2. Look at that.
Yep. Yeah, that's a great setup, and he's using those same style, very similar faceplates on there, and it's nice, neat setup. You don't see wires hanging around, and that's a Troy. Okay, you get Troy built. So those, there's Troy, there's Jado Desk, there's a few other manufacturers, and there's another question in there about mine, but those are all Jado Desk faceplates, but they're pretty well compatible. About the biggest difference between the Troy and the Jado Desk is that the screws that hold the plates, the faceplates down on the rack, they're spaced a little differently. So you can still use them. You just might have to drill on there. So, and aesthetically, they might be a little different. But it's a great, neat, well-protected, and secure installation.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly keeps it, from having dust or any other issues.
Yeah.
It keeps everything concealed. So we're going to start answering some of your questions. I know there's a few questions out there, but if you want to ask more questions, certainly put them in the comments right now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go through some of our business that we have each and every week. We want to remind you that we're always looking for photos of your shacks. Whether it be mobile shack, like Dale just sent me through text message, or your base shack, and we would love to see it. No shack is too big or too small. We would love to see it. The stupid scanner tricks, like things that you've thought of that makes scanning life a little bit easier for you. We would love to see those. You can email thescannerguys@gmail.com. Keep in mind, we don't monitor this email 24/7, so if you have support questions, we'll give you that email address. And here it is, support@scannermaster.com is the email address. We monitor that email box pretty much Monday through Friday. Give us a call. If you've got questions, pick up the phone Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., 1-800-722-6637. We can answer those questions. If you're not able to call, next best thing, drop us an email, and we'll be able to do that at support@scannermaster.com. And remember, ScannerMaster is open 24/7 online at scannermaster.com. So we'll be able to answer we'll be able to fulfill your shopping needs there, so you can order online at scannermaster.com. And we want to remind you that next week's broadcast number 2 for 2021, is getting to know scanner connectors. Now, this is, I've actually already built the slideshow. So we're going to talk about coax connectors. We're going to talk about programming connectors. And what was the other thing?
Audio.
Maybe. But that would probably be a good one too, with mono and stereo. I'm trying to remember what the other thing was, but there's
there's not that many other connectors. You got a power, different type of power connectors, audio connectors, antenna connectors, and
I can't remember what the other thing is. I mean, I was working on it last night at 11 or 12 o'clock at night. So, so anyway, but getting
a little
to
bit
know
of mind mush going on.
Getting to know your connectors. So 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific. We're going to talk about that. So it'll be a good overview on some of those connectors. So if you want to get to know those, we'll talk about that as well. And also, another thing that I just remembered, I got to add to the slideshow, Rich. Make sure that we add storage ideas for these various things that we've accumulated, such as connectors. So we'll add that in as well. Don't forget Train Aficionado Live. We'll be back on Monday, February the 1st, 2021, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific. Haven't decided the topic of discussion in case you missed last Monday, this Monday's show. It was all about abandoned railroads and abandoned things and discovering them. And so I gave, through the hour and 8-minute show, I gave you some tips about that, and we talked about that a little bit. So definitely check that out. You can check that on the Train Aficionado YouTube account. You can also subscribe to the channel there. We'll have another broadcast coming up in February. I should have, hopefully, a topic next week. I haven't decided what I'm going to do for the next show, but we'll definitely have a good one there. And don't forget to follow, like, and subscribe to their social media as well. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. And make sure you check out the blog as well at trainaficionado.com. And make sure you follow, like, and subscribe to the Scanner Master social media at Scanner Master Co. at Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and then, of course, the Scanner Guys. We've got a lot of social media, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram. So make sure you follow, like, and subscribe to all that social media. We'll remind you of that at the end of the show as well. So if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button on the channel that you're watching right now, which is the Scanner Guys. So let's dive into some of the questions. We've covered a lot tonight. I mean, we've showed you some shack ideas. We've showed you some accessories that you can look at. Accessories, some of them that we don't even carry at Scanner Master.
Yeah.
So hopefully that piques your interest and maybe getting you to look at your vehicle and deciding, what can I do here?
Yeah. And you know what? Imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, as they say. So if you see something that we've done, or one of our viewers, or one of our other viewers that have shared their pictures has done, and you like that idea, go for it. Most of the things that I've done, I've seen somebody else do. Maybe not on the same scale, but I've copied a lot of these ideas from other people. So if you see it and you like it, do it. So there were a bunch of comments originally about the goings on in D.C. Today. So regardless of your political beliefs, nobody really wants to see what was going on there happening. So hopefully they get that all calmed down, get the business done, and hopefully all the police officers that are working in that are okay. And I understand that somebody did die there, so that's unfortunate as well. But like I said, hopefully that will get all calmed down and they can get everything done and taken care of, and we can move on from that. Lots of
the thing I went to, anytime that any of this stuff goes on, Rich, because all of us are not typically in the market where this is happening, so I go to Broadcastify right away and to see what feed is at the top feed. And people were pretty desperate. They were listening to the railroad feed. Kid you not, they were listening to the railroad feed because that was
transit cops. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the few feeds, and they probably were because people may have been taking transit. I'm sure they were seeing an uptick in the transportation during certain hours, and that was one of the top feeds that I saw there. I always like to look to see. Okay, so we've got a major incident going on. Let's go to Broadcastify and figure out what they're listening to.
Well, so with so much of the public safety in the district itself being encrypted, you have to look at all. Again, thinking outside the box. Can't listen to the police and fire. Well, you can listen to the transit, and you can get an idea of what's happening on, and you get an idea of the scale of what's going on. Same thing when there's there's a big fire, there's a plane crash, a train accident, something like that. Sometimes you can't hear the police and fire. There might not be a feed for it, even if they're not encrypted. But look at some of the ancillary stuff out there to see if you can pick up on what's going on. So a lot of guys checking in. So hello, a bunch of new people that we haven't seen before, and a bunch of our old friends. So congratulations. Hey, Chris, did that second antenna of yours show up yet? I hadn't heard from you this week, so hopefully that has shown up. I know he was waiting on. If you've been waiting on small packages with the Postal Service, they are starting to catch up. We have seen some of our lost packages magically appear. We've had a couple instances where people got notification that their package has been delivered and it's not there. Just last week, I got a package. I got a text message that my Postal Express package had been delivered, and I looked on my camera, and there's no package out there. And I looked, and I could see the letter carrier out there. So I walked over and talked to her. She said, I don't have it. And sure enough, it showed up at 8 o'clock that night. So they marked it as delivered at 2 in the afternoon, but at 8 o'clock it finally showed up. So if your Postal Service package from us or elsewhere is coming, it's going to be late.
Yeah. And that's been a common thing with the with USPS. That's for sure.
It's been a mess, but they are starting to clear up. We've started getting notifications that some of these packages have been showing up. And when we get a complaint or a question about one of these, I do keep a list of them, and I will follow up on them every couple of days and check on them. And if it's truly lost, we'll get that taken care of. So, so there's a lot of mutual aid going on with the going on out in D.C., which is very typical whenever there's a big incident like that. It's not only the police department and the fire department for the specific area that's involved. Other police departments and fire departments, the county, state, other communities around it, they start moving in on mutual aid. So start listening to the mutual aid or interoperability channels.
Yeah, especially, I was just thinking about this. The national ones are got to be active in the DC area. I mean, for a couple of reasons. One, you're having a lot of agencies come in, and the DC police and fire is encrypted. So this creates an issue. It's all fine and dandy for an agency to go encrypted, but when mutual aid occurs, this basically creates a huge barricade in between you and a department that you don't typically work with all the time. So if you're in the DC area, we did a whole show on this about those mutual aid channels, the nationwide ones. I'm sure those are busy.
Oh yeah, they're hopping. So, and that's another good place to start to listening. So see here, a bunch of check-ins, a couple of our new guys. So let's see here. So some people are staying home as much as possible, only leaving when they have to. I work from home, so I don't have to travel and get exposed as often. So if you don't have to go out, stay in. And if you do go out, wear your mask. The best mobile setup is an RV with a complete setup. Well, Jonathan, you're an RV guy. I hope you've got a good setup in
So
your
what
trailer.
I have is I use a Home Patrol 2 inside the RV, and I basically
Mm-hmm.
have it. It's not a drivable one, so it's a travel trailer.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, what I'll have is favorites lists for all the areas that I typically frequent. I haven't done a lot of camping in the last year or so, so it's sat in the driveway a little bit. But when I was up in the Northeast, I would frequently go to. There was a campground that was in Ware, New Hampshire, that I would go to for the NASCAR races up in New Hampshire. And then I would normally go over to Mystic, Connecticut.
Mm-hmm.
There's a KOA over there that I went to for several years. And then there is the campground that's not too far where I lived was Normandy Farms in Foxborough. So each one of those, when I used the radio, is I had the favorites list labeled as the town, and
Yeah.
I would just simply have my home patrol. I would keep it updated throughout the year. I would tweak those favorites lists a little bit, add things in, and then when I arrived, just set up the scanner,
Yeah.
select the favorites list, start
Off you
listening,
go.
and you're done.
Yeah. Yeah. One thing a question that we get all the time on the phone and through the support box is using quick keys versus using the menu system on the radio. I hate quick keys. Some people love them, and God bless you, use
And
them.
there's been a demand for us to do a show on that.
Yeah, so we'll talk about that. But I don't use quick keys. I use mostly the 536s and the SDSs. I just hit the menu button, go into set scan selection, then select list to monitor, turn on the favorites lists I want, turn off the ones I don't want, and go. I don't have to remember that. Okay, quick key number 2 is the favorites list for the state police, and the quick key number 2 is this, or I have to have it. No, I just turn on the stuff I want, turn off the stuff I don't want with the menu button, and I'm done with it.
In
So
that same menu, you know what I love? Turn all list off.
yeah,
So if you've got multiple lists going for a certain area, and you
yeah,
want to just like, okay, I don't want to be off. Just go to that option, all off, and there's
yep,
also an option for all on. I mean,
yeah.
so you could do one
Yeah, if
way
you're
or
a
the other.
masochist, yeah.
All on or all off. And
Yeah.
that's the thing. I am totally with Rich. You got to remember. Okay, what was
Mm,
favorites list?
yeah.
And it's just too much of a pain.
Yeah. And if you can remember what those are, and if that works for you, go for it. More power to you, pal. That's just not my thing. I think it's a lot simpler just to use the menu button and try to remember quick keys. They're a great idea, and they are very useful for some people, just not for this people.
Yeah.
Dave reports that there's a strong rumor that the Erie County Sheriff's Office in Buffalo might go encrypted soon. Buffalo, New York. If you're out in the far western edge of New York, hopefully they won't. But if they do, oh well.
Yeah, and hopefully it won't be full bore, so you'll still be able
Yeah.
to get some of the stuff on the fire end of things. I mean, that's a good thing about it is a lot of people get all ticked off when the police do it, but if
Mm-hmm.
the fire department doesn't go, you're still going to be able to hear car accidents. You're either going to hear them roll on scene with
Yeah.
any of the medicals, such as a stabbing or a shooting, and they're going to dispatch it out. Respond
Yep.
to XYZ Street, reported shooting,
Yeah.
police is on scene, stage at such and such because, the scene's still not secure. You're
Yep.
still going to get some of the story.
Yeah, and it gives you an opportunity to broaden your horizons when it comes to what you want to listen to. I've been in the police and fire business all my life. That's the last thing I listen to. I don't listen to the cop shop. I don't listen to the fire boys. I listen to other stuff these days, and I have a lot of fun doing it. And that's just me. You or that guy over there might want to listen to the police all the time, and that's all he's interested. That's great. But I listen to other stuff, and for me, it's a lot less of the content versus the discovery of what's going on. So
Yeah, I was up at 11 or 12, or I forget what time I went to bed last night. And I was listening to the police, and that's something that I listen to them occasionally. They had high speed chase. Somebody was going 100 plus, and eventually, the knucklehead pulled over. He didn't go too far.
yeah,
And then automatically, got arrested because he was going over, the limit too high. But that was kind of interesting to hear. The police officer said, "Yeah, he's not. Oh, well, he's pulling over now." So
I have never had a chase that went over 100 miles an hour where they pulled over voluntarily. Almost everyone they usually wreck out. I had one of them where they dumped the car and ran, and but most of the time they wreck out. And I've had one where they actually got away from me, but most of the time they wreck out. So it doesn't pay. Take the ticket and get on with your life. But you're going to wreck a car, you're going to get killed, or worse, you're going to kill somebody else, an innocent person. You don't want that. So alrighty, yes, sir.
Alicia, today is her birthday, and she's not even here.
Oh man, well she's probably out celebrating her birthday, having a cake.
So Alicia, if you're watching this on the rebroadcast, happy birthday to you. We did acknowledge it. So she's not here tonight. So happy birthday to you.
Oh well, everybody say hello to and happy birthday to Alicia. Maybe she'll see the replay.
All right.
Steve had some issue, or not Steve. Greg had some issues with our feed, so it was freezing up. It turns out it was probably his end. And that will occasionally happen. Sometimes one of us will actually be frozen. I mean, it's the internet, so God knows what can happen. But if it's happening and not everybody is complaining about it in the comments, restart your browser, restart your router. What have you. I restart my router once a month. First of every month, I restart my router and my cable modem, and I restart my computer once a week. So,
well, I restart my computer once a week as well, and it's usually before this broadcast.
There you go. I usually shut it off on Friday night, and I try to sleep in on Saturday, but I usually can't. So it gives the computer the entire night and maybe a long morning to rest up, to get ready for that big weekend of streaming. And so let's see here. Good evening from Jersey. Joe writes that power spikes can be worse than a power shutdown. Yeah, absolutely. If a power shutdown is going on, you're going to get a corrupted SD card if it's in the middle of a read-write sequence. You get a power spike, you could cause physical damage to your scanner. So, and let's see here. Joe, we were talking earlier about when I gave away all those power cables that I ended up needing after I got out here. Dale and I happened to exchange excess scanner parts that we had. He had some parts that I needed. I had some parts that he needed. And so we sent them to each other. So we're both happy with what we got. And Dale was, thank you very much. I did get your stuff. So Joe says he would have paid my shipping if I had them. What I did when I moved, I'd lived in that house for 20 years. And in 20 years, I've accumulated a lot of junk and a lot of stuff. So I started going through. We had about a year's notice that we were going to move. So I spent a lot of time cleaning out the basement, separating stuff out, and said, this stuff is giveaway, this stuff I'm going to sell, and this stuff I'm going to take with me. And the giveaway stuff I brought to our Scanner Club meetings a couple months in a row and put it out on a table, said, anybody wants this stuff, you can have it. and a lot of that stuff went that way. A few things I sold, and the rest of it I brought here. And there were a few things I gave away or sold that I really wish I would have kept.
Yeah. I need to go through. I have a huge bin, which is in the closet behind me. I need
Mm-hmm.
to actually go through it and organize it, and just be able to see what I have. I have all types of
Yeah.
different components that I've held on to because I'm afraid, like you were, I may need this at some point. So,
Yeah.
um,
Well, every once in a while I'll go through, and if I got stuff from a radio I don't have anymore and I can't use it on another radio, I'll get rid of it. But a lot of the stuff you can use. I mean, and that brings us up to the question that Dave had about his 75. Um, Check to see if the stuff that you have from that radio you got rid of 5 years ago, if you can use it on another radio. So he's got a 75 XLT, and he wants to know if he can use a cord from another scanner to charge it. Yeah, it uses a standard USB mini cable,
mhm.
and you probably have one from your 325 or your 996P2 or your 436 or some other device. So on these USB cables and stuff like that, you might want to consider hanging on to them because if you've got a spare USB mini cable, now you can use it on this 75 that you got that didn't come with a cable. So
Yeah, and that's we're gonna go over that next week with scanner connections. We're
mm-hmm.
gonna go over basically some of the current cables. I
Yeah.
was able to put together some photos so you can be able to tell what you have. I'm actually loading the slideshow on another screen, so I'm curious to see what we're covering. Yeah, so it's coax connectors, and then it's programming cables, and then we talk about a new cable that we haven't talked about in any of the broadcasts before, which is handy. I'm going to tell you why. So I'm teasing you to watch next week. And this is probably a cable that we can all use in our shacks.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something that we don't think of. And this is something that most of our radios have in the back, and we're able to do it. We'll talk about that
Cool.
more next week, a little bit more in detail. But yeah, so we're going to cover all these connectors, and we're also going to talk about management of storing all this stuff as well.
Cool. That's going to be a fun show. The question came up, but when he's driving, his goes through the auxiliary jack and out the radio speakers. We're talking about running audio through an amplified speaker like you got in your truck. You do have a couple options you can do if you don't want to put an amplified speaker. A lot of car stereos these days have an auxiliary input that you can plug into. So you can take a jumper cable from the headphone jack of your scanner into the auxiliary input, and then you can run it through your car stereo speakers. Of course, you can't listen to the radio while you're driving, because you're listening to the scanner through that system. But who cares about broadcast radio when you can listen to a scanner, right?
Yeah, the other thing too is I use a powered speaker. You don't necessarily have to use a powered speaker if you have the external jack on the back of the radio.
Yeah,
You could use a non-powered speaker. The reason why I have the powered speaker is I originally had a Home Patrol in there, and I had the jack that wasn't the headphone jack was the only option, wasn't amplified. So
yeah,
I had that speaker laying around, so I figured I'd use that. And I like being able to not have the volume pinned all the way, and to be able to have a
yeah.
little bit more volume in case I need it.
Yeah, and you get less distortion when you keep the scanner volume down a little bit and let the powered speaker do the work. So,
Mhm.
plus it looks pretty darn good too.
Yeah.
So, let's see, we talked about the power stuff pretty well, and about the backup antenna. Oh yeah, that was another thing. We were talking about having a backup power cable.
Hmm.
Think about a backup antenna. Throw a mag mount in the trunk in case your drilled in antenna breaks.
Oh yeah.
If you ever go through the car wash and you break it and you break the mount or it just goes bad, you got a mag mount you can toss on there, especially if you're on a trip. Take a mag mount and throw it in the trunk just in case.
I'll tell you something that actually happened to me. I went to go get my oil change, and typically I don't usually have any issues. And this is when I had a permanent mount, NMO mount on the top of my truck. So the garage didn't roll up the garage door all the way. So guess what happened? He went in there and whacked the freaking antenna. He
Yep.
broke my antenna. And I was like, I realized that it was broken. I said, oh crap. So then I looked, I got up and I looked on my top of my truck to make sure the NMO mount wasn't ripped out of the freaking truck, and
Yeah.
thankfully it wasn't. But I was like, well, I guess I need to make them aware of. I have antennas on the roof, so make sure you have your garage door open all the way.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's one of the reasons why I bought this house, was because I have a high clearance door on the garage. I can pull I had a full size Expedition. Now I've got a van. I could pull in with the antennas and not whack the antennas on the door.
Yeah. Yeah, and always, I get used to your clearances, because a lot of parking garages, I
Yeah.
know I can clear with my pickup truck with the I have the Comtelco. No, I
Yep.
don't have the Comtelco on the truck. I have the Spectrum Force mobile antenna, and I can clear, I think, 7 feet, and as long as it's not below that, I should be fine. But yeah, I get used to that, and then you're gonna hear it ting on those
Ting,
signs
ting,
typically.
ting, ting, ting.
Yeah.
When my buddy Ted and I were going to a conference, and we had my car, and it was a full size vehicle, and I had an antenna on the roof, and the parking garage in the hotel we were staying at had bare fluorescent light bulbs in there. And I'm driving through there. I had the antenna on there, and hit the thing, and went ting, tinkle, 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 as the glass scattered out through the parking garage. And I think it hit about 3 of them before I realized what was going on. Now the parking garage is full of glass from all these fluorescent lights that I took out with my antennas. So, all right. So Steve writes, sounds like the horn from Monday night. So I'm assuming that I have the volume up on one of my train screens. So if I were to
Talking
turn
about
my
the train
camera,
aficionado.
yeah. Did you have horns on the show the other night?
No, but I remember when we did that special broadcast from Altoona.
Oh.
We had it live and local.
Yeah. Oh, there you go. Well, I have a couple TV screens that you can't see because I can see them. They're up there. And sometimes I leave the volume up on so I can hear the trains go by. But when I got my headphones on, I can't hear what's going on. I can't hear the TV. So you might hear some horn sounds as the train's going by. So that wedge street mount is about $30 that you had shown on the screen before.
Yeah, so it's not.
From
I mean,
Lido.
it's a simple thing, and it's
Yeah.
not going to cost you an arm and a leg to be able to do a simple setup.
No, just a pinky finger and a ring finger.
Yeah.
So, yeah, $30. That's not a bad price for something like that. I might get one myself. And let's see here. Joe's made his order, so thank you very much, Joe. We appreciate that. And Dale says that he uses those Velcro ties for all his radio programming cables. And yeah, I do the same thing. I've got a whole bunch of radio programming cables. I've got power cables. I've got network cables coming out the yin yang. I probably have bought 5 or 6 packages of those cables, and they're 50 in a package. So I probably have about 300 of them, and I use them all the time. Let's see. Paul has got an SDS200. Do we recommend a powered speaker? We've talked about this a little bit.
Yeah. For the SDS, I mean, you can use a powered speaker if you're in a noisy environment. I would probably recommend that, or you can use a non-powered speaker if you're in a quieter environment and you want to have a little bit of direction capability.
Yeah.
With the SDS200 I have in front of me, I have a non-powered speaker, and I have the speaker aimed towards me. It's in one of those Spectrum Force mounts, desk mounts. So I have that radio and another radio below it, and works fine. So it depends on the environment. Like if you feel that you're in a noisy environment, and you feel like you need a powered speaker, then go ahead with that. If you're in a quieter environment, but you want to have ability to position the speaker to be aimed in a certain direction, then a non-amplified.
Yeah, if you find yourself turning the volume all the way up and then rolling up the windows when you want to listen to something, you probably need a powered speaker.
Yeah, definitely.
So, Mike is related a little late to the party, but he's got a question about a good place to find frequency allocations, specifically looking for the primary users of specific type of frequencies. So the old police call used to have a frequency allocation chart in the back couple of pages of the police call, and it would say 151.475 is assigned to the conservation users, and 154.205 is assigned to fire users. A lot of that stuff nowadays really doesn't apply. It's basically a couple groups. There's public safety, business, and there might be a couple of like transportation, things like that. So it's pretty much just segregated nowadays, public safety and non-public safety. So what used to be a police channel is is usable by fire departments, highway departments, ambulances, all that kind of stuff. And the same thing with business channels. It used to be that there were set channels reserved for bus transportation and one for forestry industry and stuff like that. Nowadays, it's the business pool and the public safety pool. And really about the only segregation that you're going to see on a pretty consistent basis on that are going to be the railroads. While, there are some other non-railroad businesses operating on the railroad frequencies, for the most part, the railroad frequencies are going to be used for railroads just because of the way they interoperate with each other. And of course, obviously, you're going to have aviation channels and marine channel that's totally separate. There are some consistencies around about things like paging in hospitals, but nowadays in schools, like where I used to live in Illinois, a lot of the high schools ended up on taxi cab frequencies. For whatever reason, they discovered those were a good place to put high schools, because apparently taxi cabs are not using the radios as much as they used to. Greg asked if I lost access to a drawer or a cup holder with the Erector Set with my mobile mount. Yeah, there actually is a drawer behind where my scanners are, so I don't have access to that anymore. I just made sure there wasn't anything in there because I can't get into it anymore. So Jim he likes his solid signal stuff. Apparently, they're very inexpensive retailers of that stuff. So you've bought from Solid Signal.
Yeah,
before?
that's where I bought the mount. So I was looking for a mount like that because I was going to build the box, and I said I want this to look a little bit more professional. So what I ended up doing is purchasing that, and then I was going back and forth in between putting the 200 in there or putting the 536, and I decided to put the 536 in there. So I originally found the mount that we showed this evening for the SDS 200, and then I said, well, I think I'm going to put the 200 in the house, and then I'll put the 536 in the car, and that's how it ended up. And I've been pretty thrilled with it. I've got to say, this is probably my favorite mobile setup at this point.
Yeah, it's a nice looking setup, and it's and it seems to work very well. My problem is I don't have a vehicle that has that center space up until I got this current vehicle. So I usually end up with full consoles and stuff like that. So, and since they don't make scanners with remote heads anymore, except for the TRX2, it's it's kind of difficult. So that's why I jumped when I saw this van.
Yeah, I mean,
And,
for me, this is the third Toyota Tundra, and I buy the same package, and they haven't changed the spacing. So hopefully, if I do go to another Tundra, it's as simple as pulling that out and just put it into another one. I'm done.
Absolutely. So, and it works great. So, and let's see here. One of the we were talking about spare stuff to keep when you're on a trip. Antennas. So we talked about keeping a mag mount in the glove in the trunk in case your scanner antenna goes bad. Power cords, SD card, obviously, and any other thing that could go bad that would take you off the air, as it were. If you've got a handheld scanner, make sure you got extra batteries.
Yeah,
definitely. And charger cables. Yeah. So we were talking about using jackets and towels to cover the radios to keep them shaded and from the sun and shaded from the bad guys. We were talking about what states, and you talked about this earlier about the states, what states you can and can't. There are a few states that I know of that have some issues. So if you're in New York, Kentucky, Indiana, Florida, those are the biggies these days. Minnesota also has a permit requirement, but from what I understand, they're not real serious about it anymore. But Florida, Indiana, New York, and Kentucky are the ones that you have to be careful of. If you got a ham radio license, chances are you're going to be exempt from some of those states, but not all of them. But like you said before, check before you go.
And the other thing, too, is how they're discovering these things is you're being pulled over by the police or you're getting the police's attention. Typically, if you're driving through the state, you're abiding by the laws, they're never going to know in the grand scheme of things. I mean, if the reason they're finding out to it is you've drawn some sort of attention to you, whether you're speeding or something else, a moving violation. Blew through a red light or a stop sign or something, then that's going to be an added charge on top of whatever else. They're not pulling you over randomly. Do you got a scanner in there?
Yeah. I've never stopped a car because they had antennas. Because first off, in Illinois, it wasn't illegal. You could have as many radios in there as you want. There's no law that you're violating just by having radios in a car. But if you have a bunch of antennas in the car, it might draw my attention because I'm a radio guy, and I'm like, oh, wow, that's cool. I like the way they got that mounted. I might do that in my next car.
But most police don't know a lot about the scanner hobby.
Yeah.
I mean, if you approach some police officers, like I've worked at Scanner Master, and I've had a few state troopers come in, for various reasons.
Yeah.
And he said, some of the other guys, they know to press this button. The transmission goes over there. As of how it works, nothing. They just
It's the radio gods make it work.
Work.
There's a little invisible chipmunk that when you press the mic, he listens to you and he remembers what you said. And he runs real quick to the dispatcher and tells the dispatcher what you said. So, we have guys that smart guys, college degrees and stuff like that, but they can't figure out, okay, well, let's see here. Do I talk on this side or this side? And So it's it's the same thing. That's not what they're into. They don't care. And there are some police officers that think it's illegal to have a scanner anywhere, even when it's not. So if you're going to be traveling, make sure you know what the laws are and don't get in an argument with them. Just get through it and go from there. So, and let's see here.
I saw that, Joe. I'm a little back off the mic, so that's why I'm I've been kind of leaning back a little bit.
Lean back, relax. Wake me up when we're done here, guys. Hopefully we're not going to go 3.5 hours like we did last week.
Yeah, I think we're about through almost all, a good portion of the comments here.
Yeah, we'll be done pretty quick here. So, Yeah, so transportation. Oh, wait a minute. I skipped ahead here. Um, so, yeah, spare GPS. Yeah, that's not practical for some people, but some people are. I do actually have a spare GPS, but that's just because I got it for free. Um, Chris asks how I got the cutouts for my cabinet in the back. So those are all Giotto desk faceplates, just like the ones that you showed. For yours were Havas or Troy,
Yeah,
the ones that you bought from Solid Signal.
it's Havas.
Yeah, there's like 3 or 4 companies that make those faceplates. I actually had the brackets custom made by a company out in New York State called Norcom, and there's some the 600s down there. They actually are DIN slots brackets I bought at Scanner Master. So. There is a scanner. There's a bunch of dealers on eBay that sells those things. So RF Guy 67 on eBay is a good place to get them. And so you can get that. And there are a couple other places. Alberta Radio up in Canada has them. They ship to the U.S. And I bought mine from this place called Northcom in New York City. And Scanner Master, we do have DIN. So if you've got the DIN sleeves and a DIN capable radio, we do have those faceplates. And let's see here. How much of it is an SDS 100? The SDS 100 is $649.99 with free shipping and no sales tax in most states. So I know we do charge sales tax to places like Ohio, Michigan, Indiana, Illinois, Virginia, and a couple others. But if you're like Texas or California, Arizona, New York, there's no sales tax there. So yeah, it's $649 for the SDS 100. $699 is for the SDS 200. Furlingham has just got his cup call for his car. He loves it. Yeah, I've got one of those in my my car, and it works great. I use it for my 436 when I need it there. So yeah, Will, I don't have your pictures handy, so we will put those on our next picture show. I do. My buddy Will sent me some pictures. Unfortunately, I didn't have a chance to get them sent in to get added to the show, so I will do that on the next one.
Hey, Will, next time send them to me. I'll make sure they get on.
Yeah.
Yeah, because usually that's whenever we're doing a Ask the Scanner Guys or Fun with the Scanner Guys, that's where I'm starting to look at photos, and that's where I go through the email box and I say, oh, these are photos, we'll add those in, and that's a lot of times, you guys kind of help us with the content of that show with your stupid scanner tricks or your photos of your shacks or mobile shacks. We love those, so keep those coming. Cool.
Chris's antenna did show up, so fantastic. Yeah, it took 2 weeks, but yeah. And like Joe mentioned, some of the U.S. Postal Service depots have got dozens of tractor trailers full of mail to process. So yeah, the U.S. Postal, they're starting to dig through it, but hopefully all that stuff will get moving. And Ron brings up a very good point. Distracted driving is a big problem. In most states, in Arizona now, as of the first year, it's illegal to do this with a cell phone. And it's stupid to do this with a cell phone. And don't be texting while you're driving and stuff like that. Don't program the scanner as you're driving down the interstate at 80 miles an hour.
I can't imagine doing that. That's
nuts. No. Know where your hold button is. Know where your avoid button is so that you can tap it without having to look at it. Look this way, tap that way. Otherwise, wait until you stop to change anything. So Ron also mentions that there was a county years ago that a commander set up so the MDT wouldn't work above 15 or 25 miles an hour. That would be pretty cool. We had a rule on my department that you were not allowed to do anything other than hit your status button on your screen while you were driving. Obviously, you were able to hit the status button because that's all just pressing a button. It's a great big huge button on the front of the screen. But you were not allowed to type while you were driving. You had to stop before you could do any typing while you're putting messages in the in other information into the computer. Joe's going to have to sell me on using quick keys. Yeah, I've used them in the past. I just don't like them. It's it's like broccoli. I'm an adult. I don't have to eat broccoli, so I won't. If the president doesn't have to eat it, what president was it? President Bush, the first, that didn't like broccoli and said, "I'm the president. I don't have to eat it." And I'm not president, but I still don't have to eat it.
I'm just amazed. I was watching something about the kitchen staff at the White House. Mm-hmm. And they have a whole bunch of people on hand. I mean, that would be so cool to be able to, be able to say, "Geez, I'm craving this. Could you guys whip this up for me?"
And they will.
And they have a person that's just with desserts and pastries.
Yeah.
I'm really surprised that the presidents don't come out. 600-700 pounds. Come in skinny, go out. Instead, they go out graying, or versus.
But hey, getting good on the golf swing though. So, Chris hopes that when his area goes to the state digital system, they don't go to encryption. So I hear what you're going through, Chris, and hope they don't. So let's see here. So Todd is listening to South Dakota and Wyoming from his area. So he must be living either western South Dakota or eastern Wyoming. Let's see here. Do you have a case for your 325, 125 handy?
Carrying case?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Steve is looking to see what a case looks like for his 125. Do you have the nylon one by chance?
No, I only have the...
Okay, so you got the one with the metal clip on it then, not with the belt loop. Do you have any of the belt loop cases there?
So I don't have the clip on it because it's on the...
Yeah. But you don't have any of the belt loop cases, do you?
Yep.
Oh, you do? Great. Show that one. Show him what it looks like. He's asking on that.
Okay, wait a minute.
All right, while you're digging that out...
I got the belt clip.
You found it. Okay.
But the belt loop looks very similar to this. You see this right here? So this is actually a double layer. And then there's snap-in down here. There's two snaps. So picture this as I feel like the Golden Girls. Picture it. Sicily, 1922, Sophia. But picture this as a double layer. And then there's snaps on the bottom. So this basically flaps up. And then you can snap it in. Or the other thing, when you're putting your belt on, just loop it through. A lot of times, the thing I don't like about that, because it's a bit of a pain, it's a hard snap. With this, it's easy to come on and off. And then with the belt clip, this is easier because you can leave this portion on, as we did that simultaneously, and then you can just snap it back in like this. So
synchronized case snapping.
So the only way to get this physically off is to turn it upside down and pull it off. So that's the good thing about this is, if you're worried about losing it, the only other way is if this comes off your belt mysteriously. But as long as this is tight on your belt and the radio is right side up, you don't have to worry about this going anywhere. The only time is if it's turned upside down. Of course, it'll come out because that's how it comes out. But when you're putting it on, you can put it in right side. This is probably my favorite clip out of all the clips that we have case-wise.
Yeah, we will be talking about cases in one of our shows as well. We talk about that once or twice a year. So, if you're traveling in a mobile scanner or a rental car, bring spare fuses. Good point. Good suggestion there, Chris. That's a great idea. Spare fuses. That's something I didn't think about until now. Billy asked if we can use a CB antenna and a scanner, or can you use an antenna made for a 2-meter ham? I think the 2-meter ham antenna will work better than a CB antenna unless you're listening to low band. I actually used some 2-meter antennas on my scanners for years, and they work great. So, yeah, and the Todd agrees. So, yep, Todd and I are on the same page.
And there's that.
There's that. So, when Ron's traveling, he doesn't listen too much to the police, but he always had the analog set for PL search, so I can update the info and radio reference. I do the same thing. Every channel on my scanner, almost all the time, is set to PL search. And then that way it displays the PL that's being transmitted instead of just hitting the PL that's programmed into the radio. So, because I'm more involved in the search than I am in the actual content. So I'll do that. And then if I see a new PL tone, I'll add that to the database. Ron and Jonathan and I are all database administrators for Radio Reference. So if we find something new, we can get that updated pretty quickly. Let's see here. A couple more check-ins. When Joe travels, he brings a spare scanner GPS. Yep, I think we mentioned that a little while ago. Some people actually do, carry a spare GPS. Mm-hmm. I don't think that's quite as critical as batteries or SD card, but sometimes it can be. So, let's see here. Oh yeah, so Carmen writes that that many New York law enforcement officers aren't aware that about the traffic law section 397, which prohibits scanners in New York. I actually testified in a federal case trial and involved the guy that used a scanner to commit a robbery and flew out to New York for the trial. And the federal prosecutors there didn't know that it was against state law to have a scanner in his possession anyway. So they ended up charging him with felonies for the theft, and they used the use of a scanner as a mitigating factor. But they could have charged him with just possession of the scanner. Volunteer fire department guys are usually exempt from most scanner laws. So yeah, we did mention that earlier. There are certain states have different exemptions. There's firefighters, police officers, tow truck drivers, and stuff like that. So there are some exemptions. So make sure you check your state. So CB Ben is going to be in the Phoenix area this weekend. So most of the police and fire operations around the Phoenix area use one of several different P25 trunking systems. There's 3 main ones in the valley with a 4th one that's used occasionally by some state agencies. So depending on the town you're in, they're going to be on either Topaz, RWC, or the county system, depending on the area that you're in, for the most part. There's very limited use of VHF police and fire frequencies in the area. There's a couple GMRS channels that are very active out here. Those are a lot of fun to listen to. And, of course, you got the couple railroads. But the thing that's huge out here is aviation. The busiest general aviation airport in the world is in North Phoenix called Deer Valley. And it is immensely busy. They got 2 tower channels, and they are busy all the time. And they've got, if you like watching airplanes, they've got a platform where you can stand out there and listen and watch the aircraft, and they even have speakers so you can listen to the tower and the ground controller. So, yeah, there's a lot of stuff to listen to. Aviation, a lot of military aviation out here as well, because we got Luke Air Force Base on the West Valley. And then over in Tucson, they got Davis Mountain, and those aircraft come over here sometimes too. So, let's see here. We talked about that already. So Todd, yeah, he is in Southwest South Dakota, near the border with Wyoming. That's actually a neat area. I don't know if you've ever been out that way, Jonathan.
I haven't been out to. I could tell you right off the top of my head what states I've been in. All the states along the East Coast, and then Nevada and Arizona. That's it.
You been to Arizona?
Yeah. Yeah, I've been to the Grand Canyon.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when I was over in Las Vegas, this was before
Yeah.
you were there. This was back in. I want to say it was. God, how long ago? It was well before you were there.
Okay.
We went out there for a NASCAR race.
Okay.
God, I can't remember what year it was.
Yeah. So that's pretty much the end of the comments. So we're 2 hours and 20 minutes in.
Yeah, so next week, let's take a look at the topic of discussion for next week's show. Let me just show you a couple more slides before we do that. So let me just remove that, and then we'll put it up here. So we want to see some more of those stupid scanner tricks. Send those photos, hints, and scanner tricks to us. Email thescannerguys@gmail.com. That's thescannerguys@gmail.com. And then if you have support questions, we don't monitor that email 24/7, but if you do have support questions, email it to support@scannermaster.com. Real easy email address, support@scannermaster.com. And then if you want to talk to a live human being, give us a call at 1-800-722-6637.
Or a pretty good representation of one.
Yep, 1-800-722-6637. We're open Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Time. But if you're not able to call within those hours, drop an email. That'll be the best option. And then, as always, you can shop Scannermaster 24/7 at scannermaster.com. And next week's broadcast is Wednesday, January the 13th of 2021. Get to know the scanner connectors, I should say. So we're going to go over all that, and that'll be at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific, right here on YouTube. So make sure you hit the subscribe button so you can be notified with any new shows. Train Aficionado Live, Monday, February the 1st of 2021, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific. We'll determine a topic for that. That's always a good time. Train Aficionado. So if you're interested in trains, transit, and so on, anything that basically runs on rails, we're going to talk about it there. Follow, like, and subscribe to their social media as well. Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter. All at Train Aficionado. And check out the blog at trainaficionado.com. And then follow, like, and subscribe to the Scanner Master social media as well. Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. And then Scanner Guys are on all those plus Instagram. So the Scanner Guys. Make sure you follow, like, and subscribe to our social media. And I can't remind you enough, subscribe to the Scanner Guys channel. Definitely do that. And also hop over to Scanner Master Co. as well and subscribe to their channel as well, as I will be hopefully producing some more videos relatively soon. Dale, looks like a young lady hopefully will be calling for an SDS 100 after she saw your radio. So hopefully we'll be getting a call not momentarily, but soon. But thank you so much for joining us, everyone. Please, I mean, we're in 2021. Let's make this a positive year. Be safe out there. Be kind to one another. I think we need to just, be a little bit kinder to each other. And then, not everybody's going to agree on everything, especially political things. So respect one another. Agree to disagree with some of that stuff. But definitely join us again next week. We'll be talking about all types of things regarding connectors. So that should be interesting. So it'll give you an overview of that. And, of course, we'll be answering your questions as well. So if you guys have any show things that you want us to cover, make sure you let us know as well. So I think that's it.
Yeah, works for me. We had a great show tonight. Thanks, everybody, for watching.
All right. Well, thank you. I'm Jonathan Higgins.
I'm Rich Carlson.
Have a great night. We'll catch you next week.
Later.
Bye-bye.